thank you for taking a minute out today. I'm looking forward to getting into music and your life and music. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for wanting to talk to me.
You bet. So let's begin our journey before we get into the new album, So We Could Live. I want to begin with 5 years ago, this pandemic turned everything on its ear, especially with musicians. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you do things as a musician or live your life today?
Hmm. Well, let's see. My family and I just moved to the Netherlands after living in the US for 14 years in 2019. So we got here about 6 months before the pandemic. And so, yeah, it was a little difficult because, we just moved here and I had to sort of start from scratch, let's say, in terms of introducing myself or reacquainting myself with the musical community here, the jazz and improvised community primarily. So, it was going okay for 6 months as a start, and then of course, like everybody else, everything shut down once it was the pandemic, and so yeah, it was a very difficult period, to be honest with you. Mostly because the music that I play and that I love the most is music that requires human connection and requires people to be together and play music together. And so it was really difficult to feel like there was a purpose to me practicing and playing my instrument or maintaining a certain level of musicianship or, player readiness when I couldn't play with anybody really, except myself or maybe records. And yeah, it was quite difficult. And luckily we don't have to do that anymore, and I hope we never have to again. So I don't know. Does that sort of answer your question about
Yeah,
my
that does.
experience?
Yeah, and I'm curious, was there any relief that you got there before everything shut down, now that you look at it in retrospect?
Relief in terms of what? From
Just because
leaving?
because doing it during the pandemic would have been a totally different organism. Like it would have made things more difficult, but you were already settled, even though it wasn't ideal. Maybe not. I know I moved in January 2020, and I thought it would
Mhm.
be a horrific pain in the ass to have done it during a pandemic. So that's why I'm
Oh,
asking.
okay. Well, I mean, look, you know, I was relieved that we moving is always stressful, and of course, I'm glad that we didn't have to time our move with an unforeseen global pandemic. So, in principle, things felt good for us having moved here, and luckily they've bounced back quite a bit, and I'm very happy here as a contributing member of the musical community in the Netherlands, and
So
but
talk to me a little bit about the new album. What was the vision? How does it feel?
okay. Well, the new album is a continuation of my band project that is called No Filler and was a trio. First, we made a record before this where it was just myself, Suzanne Venemon on trumpet, and Sunny Hong on drums. And that was, let's say, my original vision of a chordless group with music that I wrote for it that would be, let's say, accessible but very open in terms of what we could do after the written material in terms of improvisation and whatnot. So the second album is a continuation of that vision of a chordless group with the addition of Jasper Blom on tenor saxophone and also contributing compositions. So let's say, the impetus for the project sort of came from one, just the band existing, and then Jasper approaching me and saying that he really liked the band and, would love to play in some capacity, or, he proposed an idea where he could write some music and I'd write some music and we could put a record out together and play some shows. And so as that came together, there were personal things in my life that were going on, mainly my father being sick, and he passed away in September of last year. And so it became pretty clear to me what, as far as making a meaningful statement that was personal and also honoring him, that that would sort of be the theme of the record. So, the artwork, the title, some of the material on the record are all sort of dedicated to him. And the general, let's say the overarching sentiment of the record is that of a feeling of paying respects and honoring people who make sacrifices for other people on their behalf. So that's sort of sentiment that I wanted to convey about how I felt about my father.
What are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Well, I would say, just like any good piece of music, I want it to touch people and connect with people on an emotional level. I think that the performance and the whatever, let's say, surface things have to all be great. The execution has to be great, but there has to be an emotional level to it too that connects with people. They don't have to know anything about jazz music or improvised music or whatever you want to label it, but they do have to hear it and feel it and just respond to what they're hearing in a way that makes them want to keep listening. So I think that's what I hope people get out of it, is that they just like it as good music. And it happens to be music where people are taking risks and improvising, and requires a little more consideration than just something that is, let's say, quote unquote, easily digestible or instantly pleasing to hear. But I think there's a good mix of substance and depth, as well as accessibility to as far as the compositions go, and also the performances.
So take me back to your beginnings in Montreal. How did the bass, how did jazz, how did this career begin?
I started on cello when I was, let's say, 12, 11 going on 12, in high school. And my high school had a great music program, luckily, and my father made sure that I was part of it. And it was run by a really important person in my life named George Doxis, who ran the program and also was a bass player. And so basically, after maybe my first year of playing cello, I found myself kind of going home with it and putting it over my leg and pretending to play it like bass guitar, and trying to play along with the music videos and things that I was watching, because I was a big fan of, let's say, the Canadian version of MTV called Much Music. And so from there, I decided, with the support of my father, to get an electric bass and start learning electric bass. And then George was my first teacher, and he helped me get good enough on it that for most of my high school time, I was playing cello in the orchestra and electric bass in the one of the jazz bands, let's say, one of the big band type of ensembles that the high school had. And by the end of high school, I was pretty sure I knew that I wanted to continue my studies and go to, let's say, college, where I'm from in Quebec. There's sort of a pre-university, post-high school thing called CEGEP. You do that for about 2 to 3 years, and then you can go to university and then you can skip a year of university. So you do 3 instead of 4 years for an undergrad. That's how it works there. Anyways, and then as far as jazz music, I mean, I was mostly fixated on becoming a studio musician or a session musician because I really like the idea of playing all kinds of different music and being good enough to play different kinds of music. And it was sort of an exciting and somewhat stable appearing job for a musician. So I thought this is perfect for me. And let's say that sort of intersected with my love for the music of the Police and Sting at that time. And so when Sting put his band together after leaving the Police, and it was full of jazz musicians, I said, oh, okay. So he hired these musicians because they're the best, and they're jazz musicians. So I guess I got to learn jazz to be the best musician I can be. And that's sort of, from there, it kind of kept going. And eventually I started being drawn to the sound of the double bass, or felt the need to learn double bass because that was such a key sound to a lot of jazz music. And my first double bass teacher, who was also very important to me, a teacher named George Mitchell, turned me on to Ray Brown, and basically I was hooked after that.
What was the first live jazz show or one of the more seminal early shows that convinced you you wanted to be up there doing that one day?
That's a good question. I mean, to be honest with you, because it happened for me more through recordings or videos or reading Bass Player magazine and things like that. That kind of got me excited, as well as my peer group. You know, George's two sons are great musicians. Saxophonist Chet Doxis, who I've recorded many times with, and we remain very close musically and personally. And then his brother Jim, who's a great drummer, who's still in Montreal. That was sort of my peer group, and we developed together and formed a band together. So those are the things that maybe most motivated me. I mean, I could name a performance that I saw that, you know, blew me away as a teenager who was, you know, impressed by something. And, you know, the first thing I can think of, honestly, is there was a live free concert at the Montreal Jazz Festival by Andy Shepherd.
Yeah. And
he was playing with his group, which I'll remember the bass player's name forever because it just made such a great impression on me. And his name was Sylvan Richardson Jr., but I was just floored by his electric playing at that time. And I had to go backstage and talk to him and tell him that. And he was a very nice guy. And, that's that's a moment in my life that I can remember. So if that answers your question, that's as good as any.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just caught the Kansas City just had the revival of our Kansas City Jazz and Blues Fest, and Stanley Clark was there, and that was amazing.
I can only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen him live?
I haven't seen Stanley Clark live. I have not.
Yeah.
And I would. Can I tell you? He's a legendary musician, virtuoso. Yeah.
So what do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day?
Well, that I get to do what I love, as my job. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And I think the longer I do it, I think the deeper my connection becomes to my reasons for doing it, because your reasons change over time. And in some ways, that makes the difference between whether I'm speaking for myself, whether I chose to stick with it or not, because something that motivates you when you're 16 or 20 or 30 might not motivate you when you're 40 or 50. And so The fact that the art form is still teaching me things about myself, and that I'm finding new depth every time I play, every time I pick up my instruments, or every time I seek out new information or inspiration. That um, I love the fact that there's a bottomless or an endless well of things to get out of it if you allow for it, or if you make room for it, and if your motivations are correct.
So you obviously have wanted to be a musician from an early age in your life. What's been the difference between this dream of being a musician and the reality of living this life? What is that gray area in between?
The difference between the dream and the reality? Well, I mean, when you have a dream, you don't necessarily have insight into everything that goes along with that dream. And then I guess the reality is, how do you thread that needle of keeping the thing alive that is really meaningful to you, um, but navigating all kinds of different challenges that might come your way, whether they're life challenges or economic challenges or artistic challenges. Um, so yeah, I think you need the dream part to get you started, and then when you kind of get a sense of what reality is, then I think it doesn't have to be a dream as much as it has to be a something with purpose and with a goal, and that goal has to transcend your need to survive financially. So I guess I think now maybe the dream, or whatever you want to call it, is just that if I can like play music how I want to play it, and be able to put my music out there, and people uh, care or want to hear it, or want to come see me play, or want to call me to play because they want me to do what I do. That's the main thing. And then that's sort of separate from, I don't know, how do I pay my rent, or how do I buy groceries, etc., etc. But to be able to do both is a privilege, and something I don't take for granted.
What do you like the best about living and playing in the Netherlands versus being in North America?
Well, to be 100% honest, I would say that I feel more of use here than I did in North America, to a degree. Uh, let's see. In Montreal, it's a small ecosystem, and you can be a working bass player or a working musician, and that will most likely mean that you'll be doing all kinds of different gigs, and that's cool to a degree. But if you want to get better or specialize a little more, then you need to kind of go somewhere else. At least that's how I felt about it. And so that led me to, get myself to New York, where I was there for 11 years. And then towards the end of my time in New York, I started to feel a little bit, a little bit burnt out, and a little bit undervalued. Um, you know, and I'm not sure. This is just these are my feelings about it, and there's a lot of other factors that come into play. But what just because somebody can do something doesn't mean that you're going to be the person who always gets called to do that thing. And so, when you're in a place like New York, where there's incredible musicians, and let's say the tier of like, how many people you can go through from, whatever, from left to right in terms of skill sets and abilities and talent, it's tremendous. And so I started to feel like I was getting, for what I'd been working towards and training to do and had done to a degree, it wasn't translating into, am I able to pay my rent and buy groceries and things like that. That it was starting to feel like, okay, this balance between me getting what I want out of playing music and also providing for myself and my family, it started to shift. And when we subsequently moved to Boston after New York, and I was there for 3 years. And in Boston, that was cool too, but there's a limited amount of places you can play where people will listen. And so that also was, let's say, less than ideal. You make the most of it and you play at Wally's or you play at the Lily Pad. And there are great musicians that live there, but it's not consistent. And there's a lot of places where you could play where people won't listen to you, and that's not necessarily very satisfying to me. So all that to be said is that in the Netherlands, since I've moved here, I feel like, and I've made a conscious effort to do so, is that I am useful to people for what I have to offer. And that when I play with people or people ask me to play, I get to play how I like to play. And that's important to me. And for the most part, there are more places to play, settings to play where people will listen. And you're not playing background music at a restaurant where people are talking over your set. So I feel very lucky that a lot of the music that I get to play here is like that.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, all of the people that play with you on the bandstand, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? I'm working on thinking that I'm nobody. That's what I'm working on. That's a work in progress. So I want to separate, what I like to do and who I am when I play and how I like to play. I like to keep that separate from, like, when I play music, it's not about me. That's the right way. If I'm in my right mind, that's what it's about. It's not about me. It's about the music, and it's about what can I do to serve the music and serve the musicians I'm playing with, and allow the music to tell me what to do. So that's who I am at the best.
I like it. So We Could Live out on October 3rd on Zena's Records, a Dutch label. If people want a copy or if they want to catch you live, any of the Good Business previous recordings, where do they go?
Well, I mean, of course, you can stream it. So I'll let people decide. Hopefully they could choose the most ethical streaming source possible for that. Otherwise, there's a physical copy. I have one right here. It looks like this. You can order that online from Bandcamp or from Zena's, from their website. And then as far as where people can see the band, currently we have a show coming up in the Netherlands, and we have a show in Belgium, and I'm working on some future bookings for Germany and maybe some of the surrounding Belgium, Luxembourg, Benelux countries. The band did go to Canada as a trio last November, and I'd like to bring the band back to Canada. Bringing the band to the U.S. is problematic, considering none of us are U.S. citizens, and can be pretty costly to do that. So at the moment, there's nothing in the books for U.S. performances, unfortunately. But there's plenty of footage online. You can hear our entire concert at the Bim House in Amsterdam on the Bim House TV channel on YouTube. That was videoed and recorded, and it's a very high quality presentation of our whole show, so people can enjoy that.
I will put all of these links in the show notes. Zach, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for talking about the album and your life and music. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it too.
You bet. And before you